Welcome, everyone. My name is Vera Sobalski, and I am the Senior Graduate Advisor for Admissions and Administration, and you are at the information session on how to create a strong PhD application. I know in the email I sent out, I told you that Professor Peter Hamilton will be joining us. We are also really lucky to have Professor Hope Mickelson and Professor Rong Long join us as well. And all of these faculty have sat on admissions committee or will sit in admissions committees. So you are getting information straight from the experts. So I'm so excited that you're here and you'll be able to hear from them. So we'll start this with, I'll do a quick overview of our PhD programs. I'll talk about our application eligibility and requirements. We'll spend about 10 minutes on that, and then I'll hand it off to Professor Hamilton, who'll facilitate some questions. We have some questions set up that he'll ask the faculty, but if you have anything, go ahead and put it in the chat and we'll ask that as well. We'll begin to wrap it up at about 9:15, but again, we can stay until 9:30 if more questions continue to arise. So I will share my screen and share some of our links that where you can view additional information. Is everyone seeing a page that says PhD program, academics? Yes? Okay, excellent. So this is a little bit about our PhD program, and you can see where we're following here on the side. And I'll share these links with you as well at the end of this presentation. So our course requirements, we have some information here about some of the courses that you'll need to take. We have a few number of required courses, and then beyond that, you'll follow guidance from your specific areas. We do have 7 focus areas. They're listed here: air quality, biomedical materials, mechanics of materials, micro, nano, robotics and systems design, and thermofluid sciences. And our faculty come from a variety of these backgrounds and work in many of these areas. So we tried to find faculty here who can touch on a lot of these. So eligibility and prerequisites. When you apply to the program, what do we look for? We do want to see an undergraduate degree in engineering, but we often get questions about, what if I have a degree in biomedical sciences or things like that? So you can apply with a background in sciences or math, as long as you are applying from an institution accredited by an agency recognized by the Department of Education from the United States. Here, just to give you some idea, here are some of the courses that we do look for. And if you have questions about that, that could be something that you can ask during the Q&A if you come from someone from a non-traditional engineering or non-engineering background. And this email here on the website, I'm the one who fields these questions, so feel free to email that. There is a person answering those, and that is me. So if anything comes up, let me know. I'll try to answer it. If I don't know the answer, I will find someone who does. GPA, we prefer 3.4. However, we look at the application holistically. So if you have a strong GPA, that doesn't necessarily mean you'll get in if other parts of your application are not as strong. If you have slightly lower GPA, it also doesn't mean you won't get in because you might have a strong other material that's really strong. English language test scores, we do now accept Duolingo. So if you're an international student, we do take those scores, and I heard that those are a little bit more affordable and accessible than TOEFL or IELTS. If you have your TOEFL or IELTS, we will take those as well. You can read additional information here, as well as some of the schools that are exempt. GRE is no longer required. I've worked in admissions for many years, and I'm so glad to see this personally, because that does bring in more access and bring in applicants from a variety of backgrounds who sometimes have trouble getting access to the GRE exam. So if you took the GRE, that's wonderful. There is no place in the application to receive it. And this means that we focus on all the other parts of your application even more. What should be in my application? And this link, again, we're following on the side here. We do need you to submit an application form through the graduate school. There's a fee that's required, $60 for domestic, $80 for international. We do have a lot of exemption information here. The majority of it is focused on domestic students. However, if you are, and just really quickly, if you apply by November 15th, all domestic students will receive an application fee waiver. So that is really great to be able to offer that. If you're an international student and you find a faculty member who's willing to work with you by the time of application, have them email me at megrad, and we will look at providing a waiver for you as well. Okay, so that's a little bit about fee waivers and application fees. Curriculum vitae. So your CV, we do want you to spend some time on that, and here's some information we want to see on the CV. Personal statement. I think this is where the art comes in when applying to a program. And by art, I don't mean flowery language. I mean crafting something that really shares about your background, what you've done, where you're trying to go, and how does our program fit in. We definitely want to see that you're applying to CU Boulder. And so talk a little bit about some of the faculty you want to work with in our program, as well as some of the areas of interest that you have and where you see yourself going beyond the PhD. And we'll spend some time on the personal statement during the Q&A. Transcripts, unofficial is fine for the application. If you are admitted and if you do choose to come to our program, then we will ask for your official transcripts at that time. Recommendation letters, we ask for 3. And then there you do have some agency and how your letters come out. And so I encourage you to spend time reaching out to faculty and research advisors, work supervisors, whoever you've worked with, and let them know a little bit about what you're doing, give them plenty of notice. And so we want to see those by the application deadline as well. TOEFL, IELTS, Duolingo, I shared a little bit about that already, and there's more information here. Important deadlines. So the deadline to apply for international applicants is December 1. The reason it's a little earlier is because we do need a couple of weeks of at least 2 weeks to process some of the documents and all of that come from international applications. Domestic application deadline is December 15th. So that's why we're doing this session now, to give you some time to learn a little bit more about what we're looking for and submit those items. And then finally, I will be holding additional events beyond this one. We had the MS application event. Today we're doing the PhD application. Today you're spending time with faculty. I've reached out to a couple of students and we're going to do some student panels in November. So keep your eye out for that. I definitely want you to talk to students as well to get a sense of, can I see myself here? Is this the kind of program I'm looking for? And what does a typical student in the program look like? And what do they pursue? It definitely helps to have a student perspective. So keep your eye out on this page for that information. Now, with that, I will stop screen sharing and I will hand it off to Professor Hamilton, who will introduce himself and begin facilitating our panel.
Great. Thank you so much, Vera. And thank you all for being here. I wanted to, again, reiterate how useful Vera can be to all of you during the admissions process. Definitely don't hesitate to reach out to her or any of the faculty you see here if you have any questions at all. We'd love to hear from you. We love to develop those connections even prior to applying. I am an associate professor in the department in the broad area of thermal fluid sciences. My research is in computational fluid dynamics with a focus primarily on turbulent flows and combustion and reacting flows. I'm also the graduate chair of our department. And so I kind of oversee the whole admissions process and our graduate committee, which consists of some staff members, faculty, students. They are responsible for reviewing applications. And so we're fortunate enough to have 2 faculty here today who, as Vera said, will be reviewing applications this year. I'll let those faculty introduce themselves in just one moment, but I will say that of the 2 required classes that you may have caught a quick glimpse of when Vera was presenting, I teach one of them. So that's the mathematical methods class. And then Dr. Hope Michelson, who will introduce herself in a moment, teaches intro to research. And Professor Rong Long has been on the grad committee for probably more years than anyone else on the grad committee at this point, and has a ton of experience reviewing applications, has seen a lot of very strong applications and maybe some weak ones, and I think can provide some good input. So with that, I will let Professor Michelson introduce herself first.
Hi. So as Professor Hamilton said, I'm Hope Michelson, and my area of research is in also thermal fluids and air quality. I study soot is kind of my main thing. So I study soot and flames. I'm on the experimental side of studying these types of systems. So I use laser-based diagnostics and X-ray-based diagnostics. I go to synchrotrons a lot. And I use aerosol mass spec and mass spec techniques to look at the components of soot and soot precursors and trying to understand what their impact is in the atmosphere. So I have instrumentation to measure particles in the atmosphere. So I have a pretty broad research program, and it's just really fun. I haven't been here very long. I've only been here a couple of years, so my research program is we just received the laser tables this past week, so it's really been really exciting. And as Professor Hamilton was saying, I teach the Intro to Research class that you would take if you came here, and you would take it in your first year. And then I shall pass the so-called floor to Professor Rong Long.
Hi everyone, my name is Ron Long. I always joke that I wish I was named right as a professor in my first day of class. Yeah, so my research area is mechanics of materials. So we do fracture, contact, adhesion, and fatigue of polymers. So we do both experiments and theory, but since we work with usually kind of softer material than the typical kind of engineering, like a ceramics or metal. So our lab is quieter than a typical fracture lab. You don't hear those sounds of breaking samples. I came here in 2014, so that's 7 years ago. In terms of teaching, I teach fracture mechanics and mechanics of composite materials. So maybe some of you may kind of take that course when you join.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Rong. And I'm going to dispense with the formalities now, and we're going to just call each other by our first names, because to be honest, we're a university in the western part of the United States. We're a little less formal. We do respect each other, but we call each other Hope, Rong, Peter, Vera. And to the point about us being in the West, the background that you see behind Rong's head, this is actually Boulder. This is Boulder during the winter, and it's a beautiful, beautiful place. So take a look at some pictures online to get a feel of the scenery here. So as Vera said, put some questions in the chat and we'll try to get to as many of those as possible. I also have a list of questions that will help guide us through the different parts of the application process. And to start us off, I was wondering if, maybe Rong, you can start and then we'll go to Hope. Can you tell us what are some of the attributes of a strong CV? And by that, I mean both the format, but also the content, the experiences that you would like to see in a strong CV.
Yeah. So I think in terms of I share my experience first. The first about the format. I don't think there is a set rule for what format you have to follow, but it's about the impression that you have a well-organized CV and can try to minimize the typos, mistakes, or misspellings, and to give an impression that your attention to details so that's about format. About the content, what I'll see, many folks on several items on your CV. Definitely GPA, because that's a reflection of your coursework, and then your research activities, is that you're applying for PhD program. So I think it's very helpful for us to know your interests and also your experience from the research activities. Even if you don't have a publication yet, I think it's still it's worth putting your a bit of details of about your research activities. And definitely publications, if you have some publications, will be helpful. And personally, I also like seeing some unique extracurricular activities, like if you have some leadership roles and or some like a volunteer community service. For me, that's a plus.
Great, thanks, Ron. So Hope, anything to add?
That was actually pretty comprehensive. In fact, I taught the lecture on CVs yesterday, so we've had like an hour and 15-minute discussion about what should be on a CV, and so it's a nice time to talk about this. One of the things I'd like to say is things that I think may detract from a CV is if you go into a lot of detail about your extracurricular activities, like I like to ski, I like to climb, I like to like if you have a whole list of all these activities that are not part of your professional, your academic path, in some ways it kind of sends a message that your focus is on all your extracurricular activities. And this will feed into the questions that we're going to talk about later, probably. And so that's something I would kind of like think very carefully about when who do you want to project to the committee who's looking for students they think will be successful in the program here at CU.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ron. I just want to second that. Don't overdo it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and Hope, maybe you can talk about the difference between what goes in a CV and then what would go into a personal statement, and talk about what would make a strong personal statement.
Oh yeah, I think for me the personal statement is the most important part of the application. So the CV will basically list, as Ron was saying, it will list your educational background, your GPA, what you've done with respect to research. If you have leadership activities at your university, are you on the student council? Are you, the president of your student council, that demonstrates other aspects of your experience that will actually not even just help you in grad school, but will guide you onto like a successful career path. All of that is great to have on a CV, kind of in a bulleted format, so that we can see it really quickly and like absorb it really quickly. In the personal statement, it's really, I would, kind of focus on why are you going to grad school, and why is CU a good place for you, you think, and focus on kind of like, CU has a very strong program in biomedical engineering. And I think that, this is the field I really want to be in. And I see their professors with connections to Anschutz, the medical campus in Denver. And I really think that this would be a great place to be able to interact with a wide range of people in this field, or something like that. And then maybe so in a personal statement, if we see that your GPA had dropped for a semester, and something happened to you, and you can say, my mom got really sick and I had to spend a lot of time taking care of her while I was, that actually shows dedication to the people around you, that is really valuable in how you can successfully, your resilience in being able to overcome difficulties. So you've had a difficult experience that's had an impact on your perspective. We'd like to see that, because that is highly valuable. I really like to see that type of explanation of how you've grown in some way. And especially if it explains something about what may look like a bad thing in your GPA, like maybe it could be turned into something that is really good. So that's what I would, kind of encourage you to think. And before you write your personal statement, sit down and think about, why am I going to grad school? Because that's the most important question. I think when I ask students, my first question is, why do you want to go to grad school? And if you say, oh, because I have nothing else to do, then maybe you don't want to go to grad school until you've sorted out what it is you want to do.
Thanks, Hope.
Wrong.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with Hope, and I guess especially on this explanation on about your GPA, if there is a particular year that your GPA is lower than other years, or if your overall GPA is low, and you can kind of explain why or what kind of reasons behind it if you want to, and also you can also probably show some argument like over the years I have shown improvements from the first year to the fourth year of my undergraduate study, and when I read a personal statement, the ones that impressed me a lot, as I remember now, is the you students made a very compelling case about the interest in this area, and also persistence, like a dedication to overcome difficulties. Because research is not like a straightforward kind of well-planned route. You will go through detours, like something won't work. So some of the persistence you can read from the personal statement.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Rong, and thanks, Hope. And I see in the chat that there are some questions about GPA and how you might overcome a lower GPA. And I think what you've heard from Rong and Hope is that the personal statement is really your place to explain why your GPA may be lower, what you were going through, even how that contributed to your decision to go to grad school. And what I sometimes recommend is to think of your CV as an outline of what you did, and the personal statement is a description of what it meant to you. What did it mean to you personally? What did it mean to your career, your decision to go to graduate school in a particular area? And we do put a lot of focus on the personal statements, especially now as part of a holistic application review. Vera?
Yes, we have a question. I got a private chat asking if I list that I'm interested in certain faculty in the purpose statement, but they're not accepting students, does that mean I won't get accepted into the program? Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
Yes, Hope, I saw you shake your head a little bit. Maybe you can lead us off.
So sometimes the faculty, like right now, I don't have enough funding to take a student right at the current moment. But that doesn't mean that by the time you get here, I won't have, like I might have funding by the time you get here. So, and then it could be there are years where someone can't take, a student. But that doesn't mean there aren't other faculty. And if you're open-minded enough to maybe think about a slightly different specific area you want to do research in, or another person you might be interested in, we'll still accept you if you're a strong candidate, and we, especially if you kind of express a little bit that you are open-minded enough to think about other areas. And we do have students, so, I'm interacting with all the students, the first year students this year. We do have quite a number of students who are still looking for faculty members because their first choice person wasn't taking someone this year. And that's fine. They're talking to a lot of people and they're getting interested in all these different research groups.
Yeah, from a faculty perspective, I think that's fine. You probably want to list more than one if that's the case. But even if you just list one faculty, it doesn't hurt anybody's feeling, because we know that you don't know well enough the research area of each faculty, and you get a much better idea when you come. So that's for me, it's totally fine.
Yeah, and what Hope and Rong said is absolutely true, and that's also more or less the approach we take as a program. And so I saw there was a question in the chat about research assistantships and TAs. And this discussion is more for after you've all submitted applications, but we can say a little bit right now. So almost all of our incoming PhD students are supported by departmental funds as a TA or RA. So you will come in typically with a specific advisor in mind. In some cases, as Hope pointed out, maybe a group of advisors that you might be interested in working with. But that first year, the department supports the students, which actually gives the students some flexibility to make sure they're in the right spot. It gives faculty the flexibility to find that funding, maybe later down the line. And we do this, because we're aware that you may not have a good sense of which group you fit best in. Faculty may not have a good sense of their funding until a little bit later. And so, it's kind of built into how we approach admissions. And something that Hope said you should take away, we are really just looking for strong candidates. We're looking for bright, motivated, organized, mature people to add to our graduate program. And we always find a home for students like that. And so that's the first and most important thing. So with that, let's move on to one other item of the application, which are the recommendation letters. And so, Ron, maybe you can start us off, talk about what you like to see in recommendation letters, and also who you like to see recommendation letters from, because there was a question related to that in the chats regarding, say, industry recommendation letter writers.
Yeah, in that case, I think the manager, a letter from your direct manager would be the ideal choice. And normally, I think the recommendation letters come from either professor with whom you took a class from, or you have done some research, and your research advisor, will give a kind of description on your basically your research activity, your experience, and what your advisor perceive you as a researcher, like how you performed, and these are beyond the record on your CV. So like I don't think anybody participating in undergraduate research would get a paper or conference presentation eventually. It's something just probably some experiment just takes time, or it won't work out. But in that case, your research advisor's opinion on how you performed, your skills, and your kind of dedication or persistence, those are kind of gives us another sort of view of another face of your kind of application. Because I always see them your application as a package is a multifaceted kind of item. It's not just your GPA. So we want to see your application from different angles as much as possible. Yeah, and also one thing I kind of learned is that if you can have a closer relationship with your letter writer, research advisor, I think it's a great kind of person. Or if you took a course and you performed well in that course, like or you had a lot of conversations with your professor, then I think that would be much better than another course where you sort of barely talked to the professor, or you didn't get a good performance on this course. Yeah.
Thanks, Ron.
Yep.
Hope.
So one of the things that I might recommend is, if you can do it, get a diversity of letters. Like, so say you get one from your, if you did undergraduate research, you get one from your research advisor. And then maybe you volunteered to work at the Humane Society. And you get a letter from someone there saying that you're really responsible, that you you were motivated, you made decisions on your own. So that, kind of like shows us different aspects of your ability to like get things done. So think about not just your scholastic part of your application, but also the whole package of who you are in general is, I think, a good idea. I would recommend that you ask your references kind of early in advance. Say, I'm going to be applying for this. Could you write a letter instead of springing it on them at the last minute? Having written many, many letters for people, I appreciate having like a advance notice, and then send them your application so they can see what you're putting into it. So they can see what you think your strengths are, and then they can amplify those and speak to those strengths that you have. Because they're like, more about you than they do, but you can remind them that this is who you are. And then I will sometimes I like to see sometimes that someone writing a letter for would just tell me, oh, here are some of my kind of like aside, like an informal, like here are my greatest hits, kind of things that I feel like I've succeeded in, that they may be able to say, they won this award and it was really incredible type of thing. So like those are just tips on how to get kind of really targeted good letters from people.
Great. And there was a question in the chat related to reference letters. So if you're someone who, say, has worked in a research group, would it make sense to have two people, maybe two senior people in that research group, write letters, or would that be seen as redundant?
That probably depends on if you have other letter writers. If you don't, then go ahead and ask other people. I heard a story recently about an undergraduate application where the student got a letter from the custodian because she had gone out of her way to be kind to him and to like make sure that he felt welcome as he was like working in their space. And it got her into like a real high-powered university as an undergrad. So kind of keep that in mind, that sometimes we really like to see like a very special part of you other people have seen. That's hard to put into a letter from your research advisor.
Great. So I'm going to ask the faculty one more question, and then we'll stop recording and make sure we get through all of the questions in the chat. In some cases, we actually may ask you to ask the question if you're comfortable doing so. So we will get through everything. But the last question for the recorded session. So Hope and Rong, can you give one tip for applicants to keep in mind that maybe we haven't discussed yet as they prepare their application?
Yeah, I would say take some time to go through our website and know roughly the research area of each faculty. And if you can, I would list several names of faculties who you are interested in working with.
Great, thanks, Ron.
And then
Hope.
I would say make okay, this sounds silly, but make absolutely sure that you want to go to grad school, because the students who don't make it through, who get here and waste their time by just kind of starting and not finishing, I think just really haven't thought about what it means to go to grad school, because as Ron was saying, not everything works, and it will be hard, and you will have to work really, really hard. And if you're going to grad school thinking that, okay, I'm going to spend, 50% of my time climbing and the other 50%, hanging out in the cafe and doing research, then you're not going to make it through grad school. And we don't want to see you fail. We want to see you succeed. So it may be that you want to take a little time and think about, exactly what you want to be doing. So So that would be, I don't want to be discouraging. I actually want to make sure that you succeed.
Yeah, I think those are both great takeaways. And something that I would add that is an undercurrent to a lot of the questions we get is, am I too far past undergrad? Am I too far past master's? Am I too far along in industry to come back to graduate school? Do I have the right undergraduate degree to go to graduate school? These are, important questions, but you may be surprised that in many cases, working in a different area for undergrad, being in industry for several years, these are actually very clear motivators to go back to graduate school in engineering. And we like to see that. We like to see that you've tried something else, or maybe you've been away for a while and then you're making the active decision to pursue a PhD, because that shows you'll have the commitment and the motivation to be really successful. Because to be honest, a PhD is difficult and you need some inner drive to get you through some tough times. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to show that. So with that, Vera, maybe you could stop the recording and we could go through some of the additional questions in the chat.
Okay, thank you, Peter. And thank you everyone for being here. I'll go ahead and stop the recording. If you have any other questions, please reach out to me at megrad, MEGRAD @colorado.edu. Thanks.